Okay, guys, it is time for fun with fountain pens. Let's see if I can get that to work. Here we go.
Here's a house. Here's a door. Windows 1, 2, 3, 4. Ready to knock? Turn the lock.
10 school. Okay, guys, I just love that intro, and I'm so glad that I made it. All right, the pen that I have for you today is called the Jinhao 80. It's kind of a Frankenstein pen, all right? But people who know pens look at this and go, oh my goodness, it's a Chinese copy of a Lamy 2000, all right? This is a Lamy 2000, and you can see that the two pens are very, very similar. Okay, from just at first glance, they look to be the same pen, but they are in fact very, very different. The Lamy is my standard pen. This is my everyday carry. Most of the members of my family prefer it. It is wonderful. You can get one of these for about $400. It is a triumph of the Bauhaus design movement. It is fantastic. It is always reliable, and it just absolutely works as an everyday carry. I consider it to be the perfect pen. And just on that, the ink I use with it, and most of my family members do as well, is called Iroshizuku kon-peki. More about that in a moment. The Jinhao, as I said, is a sort of a Frankenstein pen. It does look a lot like a Lamy 2000, at least on the outside. One of the big differences is it doesn't have that same hooded nib. What it does have is a standard Lamy, I think they're called Z80 nib. And the great thing about those is that they're interchangeable. The other thing you'll notice is that the grip is not metal, and it doesn't have an ink window. That is a major, major deficiency. In terms of the filling mechanism, it is, like most Chinese pens, just a cartridge converter. Now, I have this loaded with Lamy Turqouise ink. It looks like this. And someone asked me, it might have been Quiet Night, asked me to talk a little bit about the inks that I use. Lamy Turqouise is quite lovely, and it's really, really inexpensive. It comes in bottles like this, which come with this really cool blotting paper as well, which is really useful. If you take this off the ink bottle, which is 50 ml, it looks a little bit like a space saucer. But the pens, like most Chinese pens, the issue that you have with them is that nibs, because Oriental people tend to prefer very, very fine nibs, so you get them in like extra fine, and extra fine and things like that. And this is a fine nib, and it's a little bit too fine for my hand. But what I've done is I've ordered a replacement Lamy nib. A normal Lamy nib would work, but I just got a Chinese clone. It cost me $3. I was hoping that would arrive before I did this episode so that I could show you the nib change. So I think I might use this pen with just a different nib. I bought a 1.1 stub, which is a little bit more useful for me because I like a nib that lays down a little bit more ink. However, I don't like this pen particularly because while it's a copy of a very expensive Lamy, it is not as good as the copies of an inexpensive Lamy. Now, you'll recall last week I showed you this pen, which is a copy of a Lamy Safari. It is very, very similar in that it's got the same type of interchangeable nib as the Jinhao 80. The big difference is that it has the ink window, so you can see how much ink is remaining inside your pen, and because of that, I think it is actually superior. So if I was to choose between one of these, I would choose the Lamy Safari copy rather than the Jinhao 80. Oh, the other thing I should probably mention about this is that Lamy did sell a pen that was kind of like this back in the 1970s. It was sort of like a cheaper version of the Lamy 2000 that was in many ways very, very similar to this pen. Now, because someone wanted me to talk a little bit more about the ink, I thought I would do that by showing you two of my favorite inks. The first is, this is Iroshizuku kon-peki. This is the standard ink that pretty much everyone in my family uses. We use it for our internal correspondence, and I use it all of the time because it is a very, very startlingly turquoise blue, and I'm going to show you what it looks like on the page in a moment. But my standard ink combination, the pen that I almost always have on me, is a Lamy 2000 loaded with this ink. The issue is with it is that it is actually relatively expensive. A 50ml bottle of this costs you about $60, whereas a 50ml bottle of this costs you about $15. I'm just going to show you a finger test so you can see what the difference is like between the two colors. Okay, so there you have the Simon's blue finger and ink sample of kon-peki. And now I have another blue finger, two blue fingers of the difference between Iroshizuku kon-peki and Lamy's default turquoise ink. They are almost imperceptibly different, right? If you were going to use, if you really, really wanted a fantastic work ink that is blue for work, or for any other purpose, I mean, these are so blue, people really notice them. Like you write something on a page and people comment like, wow, what am I looking at here? Why is this so vibrant? And my camera probably doesn't do it justice. Okay, so if you want a really fantastic ink that is actually quite quick drying, like I laid down quite a lot of ink here, and I'm just about to do a smear test so that you can see on the Iroshizuku, it's completely dry now, and on the Lamy, it's still a little bit wet. However, it is a fantastic ink in terms of the color. If you were asking me for a recommendation of a pen, I would say do not buy the Jinhao 80. Spend a similar amount of money and buy one of the Safari copies off of AliExpress like this one. You don't need to go and spend $60 on a bottle of kon-peki ink. You can get effectively the same color from Lamy for $15. It is the Lamy Turqouise. All right, guys, that was fun with fountain pens for Sunday night. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. You are watching SimonTV. I'll be back with one more news article. I've only got about 15 minutes left in the broadcast. Thank you very much for your company. I hope you're enjoying the show.